What were the Paris audiences like when you showed them Evil Dead?
The Paris audience at the Rex Theater, which is the oldest theater in Paris, giant place, they went crazy. They're out of their minds. They throw paper airplanes. You go up on stage, they throw tomatoes at you. They confiscated a gun from some fellow when I was there. And one time, from the balcony, they threw a whole bucket full of razor blades down at the crowd. It's really insane audience, and they start these cheers together. Arrivé, arrivé. I don't know what they mean, but they're saying something, and it's in French too. And they're just wild. They go crazy. They scream things back at the screen like every movie is a Rocky Horror Picture Show. They really are a die-hard, fun-loving horror crowd.
What kind of demands were made on Bruce Campbell, the star of the film, on location down there?
Incredible demands were placed upon Bruce while we were shooting the picture. For about 80% of the film, he's covered in blood, and it keeps becoming more and more and more blood. And since we shot things out of continuity, he would have to remember for different scenes exactly how much he had on him. Sometimes half his face would be covered in blood, sometimes there'd just be a few drops, and we had no continuity person, so he had to take care of it all himself. Also, this blood is, I can't really explain to you how horrible it is. It's basically the substance similar to maple syrup. And this stuff dries and hardens, and it starts pulling your hair. If you move, it sticks to your clothes. Ugh, and it hurts, and his whole body was covered in it. And he always had to be in this blood. And this is at like 15 degrees Fahrenheit all the time. So not only is he covered in maple syrup, but he's freezing to death. And this suffering that he was going through probably didn't hurt his performance on the screen, where he's suffering and cold and going schizo-paranoid in front of these, surrounded by these horrible creatures. In fact, some of it even probably comes out in the film.
How did you do let me rephrase that. What was the most difficult scene for you to shoot?
The most difficult shot for me, personally, in the picture was, it's a track beginning upside down, and it goes over Bruce Campbell's head, and then the shot ends right side up. And for that, I had to be hanging from the ceiling by this, what do you call this, underneath your knee, on a rafter. And so I was actually hanging upside down with the camera like that. Bruce walked toward me, and I had to actually pick my body up with my legs and then come back down. It's very difficult to explain, but it's actually what happened. And that was the most physically difficult shot. We had a weird experience that we were shooting the very first shot of the movie. Tim Filo, the cameraman, and myself went to this field to get a very long shot. We were using a telephoto lens of this bridge that the car is crossing. The kids are coming up to the cabin. Well, the whole field was filled with cows, and there was one bull. And it wouldn't let us into the field. There was a barbed wire electric fence, and you had to crawl under the thing, but the thing wouldn't let you get anywhere near its cows. So we had one of the production assistants sing to this bull, to distract it, and we snuck around another section of the field down this hill where the bull couldn't see us. Snuck under the fence, passed the camera gear through, set up the shot. We were starting to shoot. The bull is coming, the bull! We heard some screaming, and what he was screaming was, the bull is coming. And that means that there's a bull coming towards you. And we looked up on the hill, and there was a bull charging us. Well, I don't have a good story about grabbing the negative or anything like that. I just ran for my life, and he chased us around trees, and we couldn't get out because the fence was electrified. It's not something you can like grab and climb over in a minute. You have to actually stop and crawl under this thing. It was a nightmare. But we survived.
Where did you find the actors?
The actors for Evil Dead were recruited out of Detroit, mostly out of the commercial business. Some were in dinner theater, and they had been making documentaries and industrial films, and we had a little audition, and we whittled it down to finally the 4 people that we needed besides Bruce. One of the girls, Ellen Sandweiss, who plays the female lead in the picture, I went to high school with her also. So Bruce, myself, and Ellen all knew each other, and really all we had to cast for were the other 3 parts.
visual style?
What visual style were you going for? Describe the visual style.
The visual style. While I was shooting the picture, I wasn't particularly after any visual style. Just wanted to put the camera in a place that would best get across that particular piece of information for that particular shot. So I was just hoping that I would take into consideration, one, what's the best way to see the object, two, will it cut with the shot before and after it, and three, is the placement of the camera or the movement of the camera, whatever the camera is doing, zooming or craning up or down, is that the same feeling we want to get across with what the image is? Are they one and the same, or is it helping the image? And based on those questions, those factors determine where and how the thing was shot.
How do you get a shock from an audience? Let me rephrase it. How do you shock the audience?
I guess it can be done all sorts of ways, but what I did in Evil Dead is tried to what I think everyone must try and do, basically, and that is build up some amount of suspense or fear on the audience part that something is going to happen, not exactly letting them know when it's going to happen, and then letting it happen in force, so that they get on the edge of their seats and you hit them. And sometimes you can hit them twice or three times, and sometimes you can get them on the edge of their seat, and then pretend that nothing's going to happen, so they go back down, but they're still tense, and then you hit them with a shock. And that's, instead of a slap to the face that they're braced for, that's like more like a punch to the stomach. It's weird, but it actually is assaulting when shocks hit you. It is for me when I'm in the audience. I look at it like, ugh, like, ow. You know, it's almost like pain. It's a thrill, you know.
What was your aim in making the film?
Well, the aim in making Evil Dead was to entertain the people. Really to entertain them. And the reason why it was a horror film was because we felt that it was the most easily marketed type picture we could make. We always knew that there's a circuit for horror films. They always seem to be playing. And that had a lot to do with the decision to make Evil Dead. Also, in one of the Super 8 comedies that I had made, we had a point where there was a scare, what you were talking about, a shock, where someone jumps out and grabs someone. And during the comedy, the audience really jumped. And I thought, boy, this is great. This is kind of a new thrill. So I started writing horror stories as opposed to comedies, just because it was a different way to entertain people, and I had fun with it. So that factor, and the fact that there was always a market for horror films that we were aware of, we pitched in and made this picture. We tried to make it funny too, though. It's a comedy and a horror movie. Two movies in one.
Are you going to make a sequel to Evil Dead someday?
You know, I wrote a sequel. I wrote the outline for a sequel. I have it. And it really depends on, I can't say it was originally written as a trilogy or anything like that, but it depends on the fact that if it... Well, let me start over. I wrote a sequel. I've got the outline for it. But whether it's ever made into a movie would depend on whether Evil Dead makes money. It would be a financial decision. It should be a lot of fun, this sequel. It's got a lot more stuff in it, and it moves in a different direction than Evil Dead, but it should be just as entertaining and funny, I hope.
How have audiences reacted to Evil Dead?
Very well. We've been very lucky with this picture. They probably are only reacting well so that they can have grounds to hate our next picture all the more, I imagine. I don't know, but I think they're entertained. I think they like it. You're asking the wrong guy, though. You probably should ask someone on 42nd Street, you know, see what they think. Because that's really the horror crowd there. The 42nd Street crowd in New York, and the crowds in Detroit, downtown Detroit, and in Paris, as it's of all the crazy places that I've seen that really have this love for the horror film, and they want to be scared, and they want to scream things, and they want to really take part in a fun, scary, jumpy, thrilling experience that doesn't really hurt anyone, but at the same time they can have all the fun of a hockey game and all they're out is 350.